Okay, so once again, good morning, everyone. Our topic for today is about malwares. So, malware is a short for malicious software. No, it is a software used or created to disrupt computer operations, gather sensitive information, or gain access to private computer system. It can appear in the form of code, scripts, active content, and other software. Malware is a general term used to refer to a variety of forms of hostile, intrusive, or annoying software. So, what are the usage of malware? Many early infectious programs, including the first internet worm, were written as experiments or pranks. No? Today, malware is used primarily to steal sensitive personal, financial, or business information for the benefits of others. Malware is sometimes used broadly against government or corporate website to gather guarded informations or to disrupt their operation in general. However, malware is often used against individuals to gain personal information such as social security numbers, banks or credit cards, and so on. So according to Wikipedia, this will be the, of course, we have malware as I mentioned, no? A computer virus, no? Bootnet, Rootkit, Morris worm, and Trojan horse, no? When we say types of malware, actually, we have viruses, no? Trojan horse or Trojan horse, no? Worms, spyware, zombie, phishing, spam, adware, and ransomware. Now, so when we say infectious, no, that is viruses or worms. So concealment, that is example of a concealment, that is Trojan horses, logic bombs, and rootkits. Malware for stealing information like spyware, keyloggers, screen scrappers. Malware for profit, we have dialers, scarewares, and ransomware. Malware as platform for other attacks like bootnets and backdoors or trapdoors. Many malware have characteristic of multiple types. Now, so what is Trojan horse? Okay, a Trojan horse is a program has the appearance of having a useful and desired functions. Neither replicates nor copies itself, but causes damage or compromises the security of the computer. It must be sent by someone or carried by another program and may arrive, no, from may arrive in the form of a joke program or a software of some sort. These are often used to capture your logins and password. So, use trick into executing Trojan horse. We have expects, no? Overt and expected behavior. We have the covertly perform malicious acts with user's authorization. So as what we have here, this will be an example of attack. Place the following file. So for example, this one and so on. So now, before I may proceed to trapdoor or backdoor, I just want also to give you an example of a Trojan horse, like remote access Trojans or the rats, backdoor Trojans or the backdoors, IRC Trojans or the IRC bots, and the keylogging Trojans. Now, the trapdoor or backdoor, no? MyDoom, no? If you are familiar with MyDoom worm, that is placed a backdoor on port 3127/TCP to allow remote control of the subverted PC by putting its own shimgapi, no, .dll file in the system32 directory and launching it as a child process of the Windows Explorer. And this is essentially the same backdoor used by my mail or the mail. Okay, again, as I mentioned, if you are familiar with my doom worm, that is placed a backdoor, no, on port 3127/TCP to allow remote control of the subverted PC by putting its own shimgapi.dll file in the system32 directory and launching it as a child process of the Windows Explorer. And this is essentially the same backdoor used by my mail. Now, the secret entry point into a system that is a specific user identifier or password that circumvents normal security procedures. Commonly used by developers, it could be included in a compiler. We have also a logic bomb. No? A logic bomb is embedded in legitimate programs, no? Activated when specified condition met. So presence, absence of some file, particular date and time, or particular user. So when triggered, typically damages system. So it can modify the system, it can delete files and delete the disk itself. Example of a logic bomb. So that is Trans-Siberian Pipeline incident occurred, no? So the CIA was tipped off by documents in the firmware dossier and had the company insert a logic bomb in the program for sabotage purposes. So this eventually resulted in the most monumental nuclear explosion and fire even seen from space. Now, spyware. Spyware is a type of malware installed to computers that collects information about users without their knowledge. No? The presence of spyware is typically hidden from the user and can be difficult to detect because spyware programs lurk on your computer to steal important information like your passwords and logins and other personal identification information and then send it off to someone else. So again, keyloggers still tracking and logging keystrokes. So screen scrapers, no, stealthily reading data from a computer display and may also tracking browsing habit and may also redirect browsing and display ads. That is spyware. How about the scareware? The malware that scares a victim into the action that ultimately end up compromising our own security. So paying for and stealing take antivirus products. So that's why be sure that if you are going to update your antivirus, be sure that it's legit. No? Because there are certain antivirus with scareware. This will be an example of a security warning. No? So example, your computer is infected with spyware, your security and privacy are in danger. So this will be an example. So as you can see here, infected with spyware. Now, how about the ransomware? Now, it holds a computer system or the data it contains. So hostage against its user by demanding a ransom. So disable an essential system service or lock the display at system startup. You need to encrypt some of the user's personal files, originally referred to as cryptoviruses, crypto trojans, or crypto worms. So that's why in our web system technologies, our PHP programming, I will teach you on how you'll be able to encrypt your password and username. A victim user has to enter a code obtainable only after wiring payment to the attacker or sending an SMS message, no, by a decryption or removal tool, that is ransomware. Now, how about the virus? No? Virus is attached, no, itself to a host, no, and replicate itself, no. Self-replicating code. Of course, we have Trojan horses. Alter normal code with infected version. It operates when infected code executed. So it means to say that if you execute a program, it is operate, no? It is spread condition, then for target files, if not infected, then alter to include virus. So perform malicious actions, execute normal program. So an example of a computer viruses like macro virus, boot virus, logic bomb virus, directory virus, and resident virus. How about the worm? A worms is a computer worm or self-replicating computer program. Okay? It uses a network to send copies of itself to other nodes or the computers on the network, and it may do so without any user intervention. It does not need to attach itself to an existing file. So I take note that worm is a self-replicating malware that does not require a host program. It propagates a fully working version of itself to other machines, carries a payload performing hidden tasks like backdoors, spam relays, and DDoS agents. So this will be the phases of worm: probing, exploitation, replication, and payload. The general worm trends, so speed of spreading, slow to pass to stealth. Vector of infection, single to varied, exploiting software vulnerabilities to exploiting human vulnerabilities. Payloads from no malicious payloads beyond spreading to bootnets, spywares, and of course the physical system. I don't know if you already heard the word, the worm, Morris worm. No, that is November 1988. The first major worm written by Robert Morris. Actually, his father, no, Robert H. Morris, was a researcher at Bell Labs, no, from 1960 until 1986. Then, working at the NSA or served as a chief scientist of the NSA National Computer Security Center, where he was involved in the production of the Rainbow series of computer security standards, and retired from the NSA in 1994. One majority of actually, I will give you some of his quotes. No, Robert Morris quoted, no, never underestimate the attention, risk, money, and time that an opponent will put into reading traffic. Rule number 1 of cryptanalyst, no, cryptanalyst, no, check for plain text. No, the 3 golden rules to ensure computer security are: do not own a computer, do not power it on, and do not use it. There is a description of Morris in Clifford's tool book, no? The mini readers of Stool's book remember Morris for giving Stool a challenging mathematics puzzle, no, in the course of their discussion of computer security. What is the next number in the sequence of 1, 11, 21, 12, 1, 1, 11, 12, 21? The next sequence is reading out in the next sequence. Two parts, of course, the main program to spread worm, look for other machines that could be infected, try to find ways of infiltrating these machines. For the Backdoor program, compiled and run on the infected machines, transferred main program to continue attack. So this will be the Morris worm descriptions. Now, Backdoor 1 debug feature of a send mail. So send mail listen on port 25, the SMTP port. Some system back then compiled it with debug option on. So the send mail is a general purpose email routing program. So both mail transfer agent and mail submission program. For mail transfer agent, it needs to listen on the port 25/TCP for incoming messages from outside of the machine, flashing the local key of unsent messages on a periodic basis. Send mail is an infamous source of many secure vulnerabilities. Actually, in August 2007, about 30% of mail servers run send mail, others run Microsoft Exchange server, Exim, and Postfix. No? The worm uses TCP to connect to port 25 on target machine, invoke the debug mode. No? Shell script creates a C program in temporary file called the $$ no, IT .c where $ is current process ID. The compiles and execute, then compile and execute this program. Then the program opens socket to machine that sent a script and retrieves worm main program, compiles it, runs. So debugs features gives the ability to send a shell script and execute on the host. Now, the exploiting fingered, no? In Unix, no, finger is a program you can use to find information about computer users. It usually lists the using finger. One can find login name, the full name, login time, ideal time, time mail was last read, and the user's plans and project files. Useful tools for social engineering attacks and gathering information. Open, block the outside domain. So this will be the sample of finger output, no? arthur.cs for due.edu and so on. So this will be the login name and others and so on and so forth. Okay, this time, fingered is the daemon for answering finger requests. So classical is stack-based shellcode exploit. Okay. Then overrides return address to jump to shell code. Exploiting trust in remote login. Remote login utilities were designed to make using network computer easy. No? Insecure because of password are transmitted in clear, mostly disabled today, no? Replaced by SSH. No? Exploit the fact that many computers on a local domain share the same user accounts. To avoid repeated entering a password, have a trusting mechanism. Each remote machine may have a file name. For example, etc/host.equiv containing a list of trusted host names with which it shares username. User with the same username on both the local and remote machines may log in from the machines listed in the remote machine. So like /etc/host.equiv file without supplying a password. So individual user may set up a similar private equivalence list with the file are hosts in their home directories. Each line in this file contains two names, a host name and a username separated by a space. An entry in a remote users that are host file permits the username who is logged into host name to log into the remote machine as the remote user without supplying a password. Now, attacks on second host but need to get first host can do so if second host is trusted by first. This information is stored in first host and the worm cannot see yet. So it must be a regular user to use our login feature. Other features of the worm, of course, we have the shelf hiding. No? The shelf hiding program is shown as SH when PS. No? Clover's RGB, no, yung ERGB array, so PS will not show its name. No? Open it files, then unlinks or deletes them so can't be found. Since files are open, worm can still access their contents. Try to find neighbors, connected hosts to compromise. So .NET Start or the network statistics is a command line tool that display network connection. So both incoming and outgoing, routing tables and number of network interface statistics. We need to take note that worm does not delete system files, modify existing file, install Trojan horses, record or transmit decrypted password, capture super user privileges. Okay, so according to each creator, the Morris worm was not written to cause damage, but to gauge the size of the internet. However, the worm was released from MIT to disguise the fact that the worm originally came from Cornell. So, a supposedly unintended consequence of the code, however, caused it to be more damaging. A computer could be infected multiple times and each additional process would slow the machine down, eventually to the point of being unusable. The worm could have determined whether to invade a new computer by asking if there was already a copy running. But just doing this would have made it trivially easy to kill. So everyone could just run a process that would answer yes when asked if there was already a copy. And the worm would stay away. The defense against this was inspired by Michael Robbins' mantra, no, randomization, to compensate for this possibility. Morris directed the worm to copy itself when the response is yes. 1 out of 7. Or 1 out of 8. So, we notice two things here. No? Vulnerability is long known before worm is spreading. Then spreading time increasing. Take note of it. So we have here an example of a slammer worms. No? The MS SQL Server 2000 receives a request of the worm. The SQL Server.exe process listens on UDP port of 1434. So in this example, the slammer's code is 376 bytes. No? Jumps to 0 times 4 2B06 DC, no? Which is the SQL sort.ddl, which effectively jumps to ASP. In i.com, this assembly push 42B0C9DCH. No? SQL sort.ddl jump especially k-factor of pass propagation, the use of UDP rather than TCP. So this will be the UDP packet header. This will be the byte signal that the SQL server to store the contents of the packet in the buffer. Okay, this one is the UX01, no? Or 0x01, the characters overflow, the buffer and spill into the stack right up to the return address. So this value overwrites the return address and points it to a location in SQL sort.ddl, which effectively calls a jump to %ESP. So this one is the first instruction to get executed. It jumps control to here. In Office slide, restore payload set up socket structure and get the seed for the random number generator. This will be the main loop of Slammer, generate new random IP addresses, push arguments onto stack, call send method, or loop around. So we have seen many fast spreading worms. So a natural question is, how fast can one get? No, in SQL, Slammer worm is fast, but it affects only machines with Microsoft SQL Server. It relies on a vulnerability that can be exploited by UDP. No, also one cannot include such payload in one UDP packet. Suppose we use TCP connection. How much can one do? Researchers come up with research worms. No, these are not actually worms that spread, but the design is mainly about the model of scanning and spreading. Assuming that a significant portion of the machines on the internet are vulnerable, how to reach and compromise them? The number is obtained by simulation and analysis and not actual spreading. Andy Warhol, no, coined the widely used expression, the 15 minutes of fame. No? In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. The key challenge is to be able to scan the internet in short amount of time, making scanning more effective and avoid wasteful effort. Why is this challenging? Its copy of worm has a local view and needs to coordinate. Local subset scanning, it is highly effective initially, not very useful afterwards. Although random scanning works well initially, it begins to die out after the number of uninfected hosts goes down. This die down can be reduced through the use of permutation scanning. In a permutation scan, an already infected machine responds differently than a potential target as a way of telling the scanning worm that the machine is infected. Not only does this prevent needless reinfections, but it can be used to impose coordinations on the worm. In a permutation scan, all worms share a common pseudo-random permutations to the IP addresses space. Such a permutation can be efficiently generated using any block cipher of 32 bits with a pre-selected key. Simply encrypt an index to get the corresponding address in the permutation and decrypt an address to get its index. Worms infected during the hitless phase or local subnet scanning start just after their point in the permutation. And scan through the permutation, looking for vulnerable machines. Whenever it sees an already infected machine, it chooses a new random start point and proceed from there. No? Worms infected by permutation scanning would start at a random point. There were also research papers on how to model worm spreading growth and detecting worm based on traffic, trying to contain or slow down worm spreading. These lines of research died out because it became apparent the attack does not aim to taking over internet in 15 minutes. Now, the Warhol worms, starting 2000, and we are seeing email attachment, from these Warhol worms. We have also flash worms, That's what we mentioned. Okay, Lovebug, that is starting 2000, we are seeing email attachment, with Lovebug. Similar method, use text messages on mobile phones. Now, the Nimda worm, that is September 18, 2001. Nimda worm is spread via 5 methods to Windows PC and servers, because HTML, email are simply web pages. The Internet Explorer can render them and open binary attachment in a way that is appropriate to their MME types. However, a flow exists, flow exists in the type of processing that is specified for certain unusual MME types. If an attacker create an HTML email containing an executable attachment, then modify the MME header information to specify that the attachment was one of the unusual MME types that IE handles incorrectly. IE would launch the attachment automatically when it rendered the email. An attacker could use this vulnerability in either of two scenarios. He or she could host an affected HTML email on a website and try to persuade another user to visit it, at which point a script on a web page could open the mail and initiate the executable. Alternatively, he or she could send the HTML mail directly to the user. In either case, the executable attachment, if it run, would be limited only by user's permission on the system. The email addresses targeted for receiving the worm are harvested from two sources: the .htm and .html files in the user's web cache folder. The contents of the user's mail images retrieved via MAPI service or the get notified with each messages. So, one running on the server machine, the worm traverses each directory in the system, so including all those accessible through file shares, and writes a MME encoded copy of itself to disk using the file names with .tml or .nws extension. Example, readme.eml. When a directory containing web content, example HTML or ASP files is found, the following snippet of JavaScript code is appended to every one of these web-related files. So, how to choose web servers? 50% of the time, an address with the same first two octets will be chosen 25% of the time. An address with the same first octet will be chosen 25% of the time. A random address will be chosen. So browser machine, web server machine, and other browser machine. So we have here the exploit various IIS directory traversal vulnerabilities, exploit backdoors left by early worms, and appends JavaScript code to web pages. So dependencies of malware, no, NIMDA depends on the other worms. Other Trojans depend on it. Now, Zombie and Bootnet. So what are some recent worms look like? No? The original storm roared to life 2 years ago. So pumping out a whooping 20% of the world's spam at its peak. No? To spread itself, it sent fake greeting cards and exploited new headlines and popular events. This new variant uses the old code and send a fake antivirus software and the spam hawking celeb videos, internet pharmacies, and dating sites. Back-end servers that controls the spread of the bootnet and storm worm automatically re-encode their distributed infection software twice an hour for new transmission and making it difficult for antivirus vendors to stop the virus and infection spread. The spameter.com, no, yung spameter.com, as well as other sites such as 419eater.com and Artist Against 419, both of which deal with 419 spam email fraud, no, have experienced DDoS attacks, temporarily rendering them completely inoperable. Tracks, no, which hosts are querying the peer-to-peer network. If you try to attack a debugger or query sites it's reporting into, it knows and punishes you instantaneously. No, SecureWorks, a chunk of DDoS-ed, no, and others. So additionally, the location of the remote servers which control the bootnet are hidden behind a constantly changing DNS technique, or called making it difficult to find and stop virus hosting sites and mail servers. In short, the name and location of such machines are frequently changed, no, and rotated, often on a minute by minute basis. So use it to indirectly launch attack like DDoS, phishing, spamming, and cracking. How about the Rootkit? No? So a Rootkit is a software that enables continued privileged access to a computer while actively hiding its presence from administrator by subverting standard operating system functionality or other application. Take note, software installed before EULAs are shown. The supposed rootkit removal didn't remove the software, simply unhide the files. So example is Sunny BMG copy protection rootkit scandal. Type of rootkits, no? We have the user level rootkits and kernel level rootkits. So how does a computer get infected with malware or being intruded? Okay, so execute malicious code via user actions, download, of course, by email attachment, download executable Trojan horse, or inserting USB drives. Buggy program accept malicious inputs, of course, and configuration errors like weak password, guest accounts, debug options, and of course, the physical access to computer. It appears these are the 4 primary ways. Okay? This will be the 4 primary ways of on how does a computer get infected with malware. Okay? Of course, we have example of antivirus program. Before we end, no? We have the Norton Antivirus, we have ABJ, Kaspersky, Avast, PCClean, McAfee, and Avira. No? Anti-spyware program. Anti-spyware program is a type of program designed to prevent and detect unwanted spyware program installation and to remove those programs if installed. So example of anti-spyware program, we have Spyware Doctor, ABG Anti-Spyware, Stopzilla, no? And Spyware. The anti-spam program is a software tries to identify useless or dangerous messages for you. So of course, we need to consider a firewall, no? Because a firewall blocks attempts to access your files over a network or internet connection that will block incoming attacks. And your computer can become infected through shared disk or even from another computer on the network. So you need to monitor what your computer is putting out over the network or internet also. And that's it for today. Thank you for attending our class. And God bless everyone.